I was 17 when it happened, a senior, ready to graduate in a few months. My school was under renovation at the time, and several classes had been moved into the old administration wing at the back of the building. It hadn't been used in years and smelled faintly of dust and mold, with yellowed ceiling tiles and flickering lights. Most students avoided it, but my psychology class had been relocated there, 4th period. The wing had no windows and only one way in or out, a long hallway with a door at the end that connected to the main school building. The walls were a weird shade of pale blue, and the whole place felt like something out of a dream you weren't supposed to remember. That day, my friend Mason and I were working on a partner project in class. After finishing our assignment early, we asked our teacher if we could go to the bathroom. She agreed, reminding us to be quick. The nearest bathroom was just down the hall, past the old conference room, which no one used anymore. As we stepped into the hallway, the light above us buzzed loudly and went out. Mason laughed and said it felt like we were in a horror movie. I laughed too, but in the back of my head, I already felt uneasy. The bathroom was dim, but clean enough. We were washing our hands and talking when Mason's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, then showed me the screen. It was a school-wide notification. Lockdown in effect. This is not a drill. We both went silent. At first, we assumed it was a mistake, or maybe just a drill that got flagged as real. We opened the door slightly to peek into the hallway. It was pitch black now, with only the emergency exit light at the end of the corridor casting a weak red glow. I whispered, "Let's just go back to class." Mason hesitated. "Wait, look." Further down the hall, barely illuminated by the red light, was a figure. He was standing motionless, right outside the door to the old conference room. At first, I thought it was a janitor, but then I noticed how he was standing. His back straight, arms hanging stiffly at his sides, head tilted just a little too far to one side. We ducked back inside the bathroom and quietly locked the door. Mason was panicking. There's no way he didn't see us. We turned off the lights and hid in the handicap stall, closing the door and crouching behind the toilet. The silence in that bathroom was awful. No fans, no vents, nothing but our breathing and the occasional metallic creak from the old pipes. Then we heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. The footsteps stopped outside the bathroom. We held our breath. The handle turned. It was locked. We thought maybe he would leave. But then, the sound of keys. Someone was trying different ones in the lock, one after the other. Mason looked at me in terror. "Who the hell has keys to this place?" I didn't answer. Finally, one of the keys worked. The door creaked open. The light from the hallway spilled in for a moment before being swallowed by darkness again as the door slowly closed behind him. We couldn't see him, but we heard him. Slow, heavy breathing. And then, a dragging sound, like he was pulling something across the tile floor. He moved silently between the stalls one by one, not checking them, just standing in front of each for a few seconds, like he was listening. We were frozen. Mason had his hand over his mouth. The man stopped in front of ours. He didn't move. Then we heard something soft hit the floor outside the stall, a light clink of metal on tile. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. After maybe a minute, we heard the door creak open again, then shut. Silence. We stayed frozen for another 5 minutes before we finally got the courage to peek out. The bathroom was empty. On the floor outside our stall was an old key ring with 3 keys on it. One of them was rusted red. We didn't go back to class. We bolted straight to the front office. They called the police immediately. Security footage from that hallway mysteriously cut out during the lockdown. No one ever found out who the man was or how he got a set of keys. But after that day, the old admin wing was sealed off for good. They told us it was for renovations, but I never saw construction crews back there again. I'm a retired police officer from upstate New York. During my 25 years on the force, I've dealt with everything from violent crime scenes to fatal accidents. But one call still sticks with me, and not for the reasons you'd expect. It was late October, a little after 4 p.m. The sky was already dark, and heavy rain was pounding the streets. I was just about to clock out when dispatch radioed in about a welfare check at a small elementary school in a rural part of town. Apparently, the principal had called in reporting that a child was missing from after-school care and that they were certain no one had left the building. When I arrived, the parking lot was empty except for a few staff cars. I was buzzed in by a shaken-looking secretary who told me that the missing boy, 9 years old, had been in the art room for aftercare but hadn't been seen in over an hour. They thought he might still be somewhere in the building. The power had gone out earlier due to the storm, and the emergency lights cast this eerie, dim glow through the halls. It was silent, except for the sound of dripping water echoing down from the ceiling leaks. I asked if they'd checked the bathrooms and closets. They had, twice. So I started searching room by room, flashlight in one hand, the other resting near my holstered weapon. Not because I expected to need it, but because something just felt off. Eventually, I reached the basement level. It was used mostly for storage, old desks, textbooks, broken projectors. As soon as I opened the basement door, I felt a wave of cold air wash over me. My flashlight flickered once before stabilizing. I called out the boy's name, but there was no answer, only the low hum of the building's ancient boiler system. Halfway down the hallway, I saw it, a single small light shining from under a storage room door. The door was cracked open just an inch. I moved quietly, pushing the door open with 2 fingers. The room was filled with shadows, old mannequins used for art class, rolls of canvas, buckets of paint. And in the far corner, a figure, small, sitting motionless with its back turned to me. I whispered the boy's name. No response. I stepped closer, and as I did, the boy slowly turned his head. Not all the way, just enough for me to see part of his face. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and filled with tears. He was shaking, but silent. I knelt down and said, "It's okay, I'm here to help." That's when I heard it. A quiet creak behind me. I spun around. Nothing. I turned back toward the boy, but he was now staring at something behind me. His lips were moving like he was whispering, but no sound came out. Then he screamed. It was so sudden and high-pitched that I nearly fell back. He scrambled toward me, clinging to my vest and sobbing uncontrollably. I pulled him up and backed out of the room. He wouldn't say anything until we were upstairs with the other staff. He just kept repeating, "He was watching me," from the ceiling. We checked that room top to bottom. No one was there, nothing out of place, just those art mannequins, though one of them was lying face down on the floor, arms twisted at strange angles. We reviewed the security footage, but during the time he went missing, all the cameras in that hallway had gone to static. When they came back online, the boy was seen exiting the basement alone. He never explained what happened down there. Neither did I. But for years after that, I'd have dreams about that room, about being watched from the dark, from above. The school shut down a few years later. Mold, they said. Structural issues. But I don't think that's why. I think something was waiting down there, and it's still waiting. It was the beginning of my sophomore year when I decided to live off campus. I found a small 2-bedroom apartment just 10 minutes away from the university. The price was decent, and I got lucky finding someone already signed on the lease who needed a roommate. His name was Eric. We texted a bit before I moved in, short to the point, but polite. When I arrived, most of his stuff was already set up in the apartment. The place was clean, almost too clean. There wasn't a single personal item anywhere, no photos, decorations, not even a magnet on the fridge. Eric introduced himself when I walked in. He was tall, pale, and spoke in a soft, deliberate tone, like he was choosing every word carefully. He shook my hand firmly but didn't smile. I tried to break the ice with a joke about moving being a pain. He just nodded. That first week was awkward. Eric didn't leave the apartment much. I assumed he was just introverted, maybe into online classes or gaming. I'd hear his door close when I got up in the morning and open again after I'd gone to bed. I never saw him cook, but food in the fridge would slowly disappear, and the dishes were always clean and stacked. One night, I stayed up late working on an assignment. Around 2 a.m., I got up to grab a snack. As I passed Eric's door, I noticed the light was on. The door was slightly ajar, and I swear I saw him sitting perfectly still at the edge of his bed, staring straight ahead. I didn't say anything, just went to the kitchen, got my food, and went back to my room. The next morning, his door was closed again. A few days later, I noticed something weird. My closet had been disturbed, shirts out of place, shoes moved. I thought maybe I was just tired or misremembering. But then it happened again and again. So I set up a simple trap. I balanced a piece of tape across the closet handles. The next evening, when I came back from class, the tape had been broken. I confronted Eric, asking if he had been in my room. He stared at me for a second longer than felt normal and said, "No." Why would I do that? His voice was flat. I couldn't tell if he was annoyed or just confused. I let it go, but started locking my bedroom door at night. That Friday, I had plans to stay over at a friend's place. Before I left, I decided to do something I never thought I'd have to do. I placed my webcam facing the door, set to record if it detected motion. I left, had a good night, and came back the next morning. My bedroom door was still locked. Everything seemed untouched, but when I checked the footage, my stomach dropped. At 2:13 a.m., the door handle started to jiggle. Then a few minutes later, Eric's face came into view. He crouched down, eye level with the doorknob, just staring. He didn't move for almost 10 full minutes. Then he whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but his mouth moved slowly, like he was reciting a prayer or talking to someone. Then he stood up and walked away. I didn't sleep that night. First thing in the morning, I packed a bag and left. I didn't even tell Eric I was going. I contacted the landlord and arranged to break the lease, citing a family emergency. I never went back. I let my parents handle collecting the rest of my things a week later. I don't know what Eric's deal was. I don't know what he was doing outside my door, or if he ever made it inside before I started locking it. But I can still see his face in that grainy webcam footage, unblinking, expressionless, as if he wasn't looking at the door, but at something behind it.